In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, humanity is defined by its soul. It is the ethereal spark that connects a living being to the war, a flickering beacon of light in an ocean of predatory darkness. To have a soul is to be human, to feel, to dream, and ultimately, to be hunted by the ruinous powers. But what if you were born without one? What if, instead of a beacon, you were an absolute, terrifying void? Imagine a life where your mere presence causes nausea, revulsion, and an instinctive, crawling terror in everyone you meet. You are not physically deformed, yet parents abandon you, crowds part before you in horror, and the psychic elite of the Imperium scream in agony simply because you exist. You are an untouchable, a pariah, a blank. You are a biological paradox, fundamentally abhorrent to the psychic species that humanity is evolving into. In the brutal ecosystem of Warhammer 40K, such a horrific mutation would normally guarantee a swift and brutal execution. But the Emperor of Mankind, in his ruthless wisdom, saw a devastating weapon in this unnatural emptiness. He gathered these soulless women and forged them into the Anathema Psykana, the Sisters of Silence. They are his Null Maidens, the absolute predators of the war, and the silent wardens of the Imperium. Today, we decode the EERIE, isolated existence of the Sisters of Silence. We will explore the agonizing reality of possessing the Pariah gene, the soulless anatomy that makes them immune to the darkest demons, and the heavy, silent toll of serving an Imperium that instinctively despises them. This is not just a tale of elite warriors. It is an exploration of ultimate psychological isolation. Welcome to the Silent Imperium. If you are ready to delve into the most suffocating, grimdark realities of the Warhammer 40K universe, subscribe to the channel and join our ranks. The truth of the Null Maidens awaits, and it is profoundly chilling. To understand the Sisters of Silence, you must first understand the fundamental currency of the Warhammer 40K universe, the soul. For humanity, a soul is not merely a philosophical concept. It is a tangible reflection in the immaterial. It is a spark of psychic energy that binds a living consciousness to the sea of souls. Ordinary humans possess a dim spark, while psykers blaze like roaring suns, drawing the predatory gaze of demons. But the Pariah gene flips this cosmic law on its head. A blank, or a pariah, does not simply lack a soul. They are a negative space in the war, an unnatural void that actively consumes and repels psychic energy. If a psyker is a blinding light, a blank is a psychic black hole. This anomaly is hardwired into their very genetics, a rare and deeply misunderstood mutation. To the universe, they are an aberration. The warp itself seems to recoil from their existence, creating an aura of psychic static that bleeds into the physical realm. Now, consider the horrific reality of living with this aura. Even for a baseline human with no latent psychic ability, standing near a blank is an agonizing experience. It begins as a creeping sense of unease, a subconscious wrongness that makes the skin crawl. Within moments, this escalates to physical nausea, a pounding headache, and an overwhelming, irrational hatred. You do not know why, but your very DNA screams that the person standing before you is fundamentally wrong, a violation of nature itself. For a psyker, however, the presence of a blank is not just uncomfortable, it is sheer, blinding torment. The Pariah's aura severs a psyker's connection to the immaterium, violently tearing them away from the source of their power. Imagine breathing freely your entire life, only to have the air suddenly turn to suffocating ash in your lungs. Psykers subjected to a blank's presence will convulse, vomit blood, and scream in pure agony as their minds are crushed by the suffocating weight of the void. Because of this uncontrollable effect, the early life of a pariah is invariably a nightmare of abuse. Long before they are discovered by the Imperium, a blank child is usually despised by their own parents. They are abandoned in hive swamps, cast out into the ash wastes, or murdered by superstitious mobs. They grow up entirely devoid of affection or human connection, surviving only through sheer resilience and an instinctive understanding of their cursed nature. In the deeply dogmatic and xenophobic Imperium of man, the mutant is traditionally burned at the stake. Yet, the Pariah gene presents a profound hypocrisy within Imperial lore. While the ecclesiarchy preaches hatred against such aberrations, the highest echelons of the Inquisition and the Adeptus dare understand their absolute necessity. The Imperium is fundamentally reliant on psykers to function, from astropathic communication to warp travel. But this reliance creates a massive vulnerability to demonic incursions. Thus, the curse becomes a grim duty. Those female blanks who survive the brutal culling of their early years are quietly harvested by the League of Black Ships. They are ripped from whatever miserable existence they have carved out and brought into the fold of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Here, their isolation is weaponized. They are not cured, nor are they loved. Instead, their curse is refined, their bodies augmented, and their silent agony transformed into the Imperium's ultimate defense. To truly grasp the existence of the Sisters of Silence, we must dissect what it means to be the Anathema. You are not just a soldier. You are a living weapon designed to break the fundamental laws of the universe. While the Adeptus Astartes are forged through genetic alchemy to conquer the physical realm, the Null Maidens are cultivated to annihilate the metaphysical. Their very anatomy is an affront to the Immaterium, a walking contradiction that unravels the fabric of sorcery and demonic manifestation simply by drawing breath. Upon full induction into the sisterhood, these women take the vow of tranquility. This is not merely a strict rule of martial discipline or a simple vow of silence. It is a profound, philosophical reflection of the absolute void within them. They surrender their voices because spoken words, filled with emotion, inflection, and intent, belong to the psychic resonance of humanity. By embracing total silence, they align their physical outward expression with the chilling, empty reality of their soulless nature. Their silence is as heavy and inevitable as the grave. Consider this. How do you perceive the universe? You instinctively feel the warmth of camaraderie, the tension of fear in a crowded room, the unspoken energy vibrating between living beings. A Sister of Silence experiences none of this. To her, the universe is stark, cold, and entirely literal. The subtle psychic connective tissue that binds the human race together is completely invisible to her. She is forced to navigate a galaxy of vibrant, screaming souls while being deaf, blind, and emotionally numb to the very essence of life. To survive as the Anathema, their bodies are pushed to the absolute pinnacle of an augmented human potential. They undergo grueling, relentless martial training, transforming their physical forms into instruments of lethal, silent precision. They move with an eerie, preternatural grace that unnerves even the transhuman space marines. Without the constant distraction of a soul or the subtle psychic manipulations of their enemies clouding their minds, their focus is absolute. They are cold, calculating predators, observing a chaotic battlefield with a horrifying, detached clarity. This lethal anatomy is encased in bespoke Vertine armor, forged from an esoteric alloy known only to the artificers of the Silent Sisterhood. This golden armor does far more than deflect bolt rounds and chainswords. It is psychically conductive, specifically designed to channel, focus, and amplify the blank's innate anti-psychic aura. When a cadre of Null Maidens marches together in perfect, silent unison, their overlapping fields create a suffocating dead zone. Magic dies. Warp portals violently collapse. Arrogant psykers fall to their knees, weeping blood as their minds are severed from the Immaterium. As we continue to dissect the horrifying reality of the Emperor's Null Maidens, take a moment to reflect on the grimdark truths we uncover here. If you are captivated by these deep dives into the darkest corners of Warhammer 40K, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your continued support is the beacon that allows us to decode the Silent Imperium. Now, let us return to the chilling perspective of the Anathema, and how they perceive the ultimate horrors of the war. The true, terrifying power of their soulless anatomy is fully revealed when they look upon the immaterial. The warp is a realm of absolute lies, built entirely on raw emotion, symbolism, and psychic projection. When a mortal looks at the warp, their vulnerable mind translates the incomprehensible energy into terrifying, recognizable metaphors. But the Null Maidens have no soul to interpret these dark metaphors. They are completely immune to the grand illusions of chaos. They see the naked, ugly truth of the universe, stripped of all its terrifying majesty. Now imagine the ultimate nightmare. A greater demon of chaos manifesting in real space. To a towering space marine or a hardened inquisitor, a bloodthirster or a keeper of secrets is a godlike entity of mind-shattering terror. It projects an aura of palpable dread that can drive ordinary men to instant, raving madness. Its form is majestic, horrifying, and utterly overwhelming. But what happens when a Sister of Silence looks up at this apocalyptic nightmare? The illusion instantly shatters. She does not see a terrifying god of war or a mesmerizing prince of excess. Through her soulless, static-filled vision, the grand majesty of chaos is violently stripped away. She sees only a writhing, pathetic knot of turbulent warp energy. It is a grotesque, formless parasite, violently and clumsily trying to maintain its shape in a physical reality where it fundamentally does not belong. To the Anathema, the greater demon is not horrifying. It is ridiculous. It is a meaningless, flailing mess of psychic garbage. The mind-bending terror that paralyzes entire army simply bounces off her internal void. She feels no fear, no temptation. Armed with her executioner's greatsword, she approaches the frantic, sputtering anomaly with the cold, detached annoyance of a professional exterminator stepping on a diseased insect. But what is the psychological cost of this absolute and yielding immunity? The mind of a Sister of Silence is an impenetrable fortress. Yes, but it is an unimaginably desolate one. To be immune to the horrors of the warp means you are also completely severed from the profound beauty of human connection. Empathy, shared joy, the collective unconscious, these concepts are utterly alien to them. They are eternal observers, trapped behind their soundproof glass, watching a humanity they are sworn to protect but can never truly join. This heartbreaking isolation is biologically reinforced every single day of their long lives. Even their closest allies, the heroic soldiers they bleed and die alongside, physically flinch when they approach. A space marine might rationally respect their unmatched combat prowess, and a custodian might value their strategic necessity. But the subconscious, biological revulsion remains. Every interaction, every shared glance, is tainted by the other person's desperate struggle to suppress their innate nausea and hatred. Imagine spending centuries in active, brutal service, saving countless imperial worlds from demonic consumption, yet never once experiencing a genuine smile or a warm, unguarded embrace. Every look cast your way by the citizens you save is either one of fearful reverence or barely concealed disgust. You are the ultimate cure for the Imperium psychic sickness, but you are a cold scalpel that is universally hated by the very flesh it is meant to save. This is the true, soulless anatomy of the Sisters of Silence. It is a life completely devoid of spiritual warmth, defined by a crushing, eerie isolation that no ordinary human could ever comprehend. They do not fight for personal glory, for the love of their peers, or for the comforting promise of a peaceful afterlife. They fight simply because they're the Anathema, and the agonizing void within them demands that the unnatural tides of the warp be pushed back into the dark. To truly comprehend the daily existence of the Sisters of Silence, you must walk the freezing, lightless corridors of the League of Black Ships. These massive, ominous vessels form the second largest fleet in the Imperium, tasked with a singular, horrifying duty, the Great Tithe. They roam the galaxy, harvesting nascent psykers from every human world to feed the ravenous psychic engines of holy terror. And the wardens of this damned harvest are the Null Maidens. Now imagine stepping aboard one of these gargantuan vessels. The atmosphere is oppressive, heavy with the psychic residue of millions of terrified, condemned souls. Yet, for a sister of silence, the environment is perceived through a lens of absolute, chilling emotional detachment. While a normal human crewman might go mad from the whispered temptations and psychic bleed-off leaking from the holds, you feel nothing. The crushing despair of the cargo is entirely lost on your soulless void. Deep within the bowels of the black ships lie the holding cells. Here, thousands of psykers are crammed together in deplorable conditions. They weep, they scream, they violently mutate as their uncontrolled powers consume them from the inside out. It is a cacophony of madness and raw warp energy. But standing guard outside these iron doors is a sister of silence, an immovable, golden statue radiating an aura of absolute, suffocating anti-magic. To the prisoners, the ship itself is an instrument of unbearable torture. The hulls are lined with esoteric psychically dampening materials, but the true torment comes from the Null Maidens patrolling the gridded decks. Their very proximity crushes the inmates' minds. It keeps the volatile psykers subdued not through physical chains, but through the sheer, paralyzing agony of having their connection to the war violently smothered by the Pariah gene. Consider the profound psychological dissonance of this role. Your entire existence is spent surrounded by the most desperate, unstable, and suffering humans in the galaxy. They beg you for mercy, for a quick death, or for just a moment of relief from your suffocating presence. Yet, you cannot offer them a shred of empathy. Pity is a psychic vulnerability, a crack in the armor that a cunning demon hiding within a psyker's mind would instantly exploit. Your duty extends far beyond merely guarding the cells. When a rogue psyker cabal or a nascent war cult breaches containment on a tithed world, local enforcers are entirely useless. The Inquisition must call upon the Anathema Psykana to cull the herd. In these moments, you do not negotiate. You do not shout warnings or demand surrender. You deploy an absolute, terrifying silence, projecting a localized psychic blackout that heralds inevitable doom for the witch. The dynamic of hunting a rogue psyker is a grimdark spectacle of suppressed power. The panicked which might hurl arcs of warplightning, conjure unnatural fire, or attempt to crush your mind with invisible force. But as you calmly step closer, their reality-bending flames sputter and die. Their telekinetic strikes shatter harmlessly against your internal void. You draw your executioner's great sword and sever their head, not with triumphant malice, but with cold, administrative finality. Finally, the grueling return journey begins. The black ships plot their course back to the Sol system, heavily laden with their psychic cargo. As a sister of silence, you understand the horrifying fate that awaits these prisoners. Millions will be sacrificed to sustain the Golden Throne, their souls burned to ash to keep the Emperor alive. You are the Grim Reaper's silent escort, ferrying the damned across the void in a thankless, horrifying, yet absolutely vital duty. To truly grasp the tragedy of your existence, you must confront the ultimate paradox of the Silent Imperium. The empire of mankind is entirely built upon the rabid, dogmatic hatred of the mutant and the abnormal. Yet, you, the bearer of the most extreme and natural mutation in human history, are tasked with being its ultimate shield. How do you reconcile being the Emperor's most potent weapon while being biologically despised by the very humanity you bleed to protect? The ecclesiarchy constantly preaches that the soul is the singular measure of a human's worth. By their rigid, fanatical definitions, you are an abomination, an empty vessel devoid of the Emperor's divine light. Yet, when the sky bleeds and the demons of the warp tear reality apart, Those same screaming priests will desperately beg for your silent intervention. You represent the ultimate, unspoken contradiction of the imperial faith. This chilling paradox reaches its zenith when you examine the concept of the talons of the Emperor. The Adeptus Custodes are designed to be his right hand, a blinding, golden light of genetic perfection and glorious martial majesty. You, the Sisters of Silence, are forged to be his left hand, casting the darkest, most absolute anti-psychic shadow. Together, you form an inseparable, devastatingly perfect dichotomy of light and void. Consider the profound, complex relationship between a golden custodian and a silent null maiden. The Custodes are so bound to the master of mankind, possessing an overwhelming, radiant presence that forces mortal men to their knees. Yet, even these transhuman demigods physically feel the chilling, unnatural order of your prior gene. They may not hate you, but they undeniably feel the fundamental, biological wrongness of your existence. Despite this innate friction, there exists a deep, unspoken respect between the two orders. Both factions are intimately tied to the secret horrors of the Golden Throne, and both endure a unique form of profound psychological isolation. The Custodes are utterly isolated by their flawless perfection, elevated far beyond mortal concerns. You are isolated by your absolute emptiness, cast far below the threshold of basic human empathy. When the talons of the Emperor march to war, they do so in a terrifying, unspoken synergy. The blinding, godlike fury of the Custodes draws the enemy's terrified attention and physical might. Meanwhile, you're suffocating. Silent Void casually strips away their sorcery, blinding their seers and collapsing their warp portals. You are the universally hated, soulless shadow that allows the Emperor's golden light to burn eternally bright. When the Imperium goes to war, it does so with deafening cacophony. The thunder of artillery, the roar of chainsaws, and the zealous battle cries of millions drown out the heavens. But when the Sisters of Silence take the field, they bring horrifying, suffocating quiet. As you step onto the blood-soaked earth, the ambient noise of the war is violently extinguished. You do not roar in anger or chant hymns to the Emperor. You simply writhe, and magic dies. To witness the silent sisterhood in the carnage of war is to watch a macabre, perfectly choreographed dance of death. Your movements are blindingly fast, possessing a preternatural grace that rivals the finest old dirty warriors. Yet, there is no passion in your strikes, no desperate struggle for survival. You fight with the cold, detached precision of a surgeon excising a malignant tumor. Every step, every swing, is calculated to maximize the annihilation of the unnatural. But how does a military force coordinate without uttering a single command? Consider the absolute necessity of the thought mark. It is a highly complex, rapid language of hand signs, gestures, and subtle body mechanics used exclusively by the Anathema Psykana. In the heat of battle, you do not need voxcasters to bark orders. A mere flick of the wrist or the precise angle of a blade communicates entire strategic formations in less than a second. Entirely invisible to the uninitiated eye, armed with the iconic Executioner Greatsword, the Vigilators of the Sisterhood become the ultimate manifestation of the Emperor's judgment. These massive, perfectly balanced blades are forged from ancient, psychically resonant alloys. As you swing the weapon in a sweeping arc, it does not merely cleave through armor and flesh. It violently severs the metaphysical tether of the witch. You are an executioner in the truest sense, delivering a silent, unceremonious decapitation to those who dare channel the immaterial. For those corrupted souls beyond the reach of a blade, the Sisterhood employs different instruments of purification. The prosecutors lay down a punishing hail of disciplined bolt of fire, shattering cultists and demonic hosts alike. Meanwhile, the witch seekers wield devastating flamers, unleashing torrents of blessed Prometheus. Fire is the ultimate cleanser of the mutant and the heretic, You walk calmly through the roaring inferno, an untouchable golden wraith, ensuring that every trace of warp taint is reduced to absolute ash. Yet, your most devastating weapon is never drawn from a scabbard or fired from a barrel. It is the suffocating weight of your very existence. As you close the distance with a rogue psyker, the physical combat is merely a formality. Long before your greatsword bites into their neck, your prior aura has already crushed their mind. They fall to the dirt, vomiting blood, their reality-bending sorcery sputtering into nothingness. You kill them with your presence before the blade ever falls. Now, imagine the sheer terror experienced by a chaos sorcerer facing your advance. A being who has spent centuries manipulating the raw power of the universe, bending reality to their whims, is suddenly stripped of everything. Their demonic familiars violently pop out of existence. Their invulnerability wards shatter. They are left as nothing more than a frail, terrified mortal staring up at a silent, emotionless executioner. The panic in their eyes is absolute, but you feel no satisfaction. This is the brutal reality of the Silent Sisterhood in combat. You do not grant honorable deaths, nor do you seek glory in the slaughter. You are engaged in a perpetual pest control operation against the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. When the carnage finally settles and the warp taint is purged, you do not celebrate. You wipe the blood from your golden armor in eerie silence, turning your soulless gaze toward the next inevitably corrupted battlefield. In the grim darkness of the far future, death is rarely an escape. For a normal human, the afterlife is a terrifying plunge into the chaotic currents of the war, where demons eagerly await to tear their soul apart. For the most devout, there is a flickering hope that their essence might be drawn to the blinding, protective light of the Emperor. But what happens when you die without a soul to offer? A Space Marine bleeds out on the mud believing he returns to his Primarch. Our guardsman dies holding the Aquila, praying for the master of mankind's embrace. They possess a spiritual payoff, however slim, for their agonizing sacrifices. But as a sister of silence, you are denied even this fragile comfort. You know with absolute, chilling certainty that there is no golden salvation waiting for you beyond the veil of physical death. When a Null maiden falls in battle, there is no metaphysical transition. There is no predatory demon waiting to devour your essence. But there is also no angelic choir to welcome you. There is only a sudden, profound cessation of biological function. The suffocating void you projected into the universe simply collapses. You do not fade into the war. You are simply erased, plunging into absolute, unyielding, and eternal nothingness. Consider the crushing philosophical weight of this reality. You dedicate your entire existence to serving a fanatic empire entirely built upon faith and the eternal preservation of the human soul. You fight the ultimate spiritual war on the front lines, staring down the gods of chaos. Yet, you are completely severed from that spiritual ecosystem. To the universe, you are merely a temporary biological anomaly. You give everything to a cosmos that refuses to acknowledge you. This is what makes your sacrifice the most tragic in the entire Imperium. When you give your life, you are literally giving the only existence you will ever have. There is no eternity, no reincarnation, and no spiritual resonance left behind. Even in death, the unnatural discomfort of your prior war lingers in the memories of those who survived alongside you. Your legacy is not one of beloved reverence, but of a necessary, unsettling coldness. You endure a centuries-long lifetime of excruciating psychological isolation, universal biological hatred, and endless, gruesome warfare. You do this knowing that the absolute end of your agonizing road is nothing but a silent, dreamless dark. You are the ultimate, unspoken martyr of the Warhammer 40K universe. You burn your only mortal coil to ash, ensuring that a humanity that fundamentally despises you might survive just one more day in the dark. In the end, there are no grand monuments erected on holy terror to honor your fallen sisters. There are no soaring hymns sung in the great cathedrals to celebrate your agonizing, silent sacrifices. The Null Maidens exist purely as a terrifying necessity, a biological weapon deployed by an Imperium that instinctively recoils from your very presence. You are the ultimate, tragic paradox of human evolution, cursed to walk entirely alone in a galaxy teeming with predatory life. Perhaps this is why your order is so intimately bound to the master of mankind, just as the Emperor sits in eternal, agonizing isolation upon the golden throne. Severed from the humanity he bleeds to protect, you share in his profound, silent suffering. You are the true reflection of his darkest burdens. You are a necessary void in the war, an absolute emptiness that ensures the fragile light of human civilization is not instantly snuffed out by the dark. Thank you for braving this descent into the suffocating reality of the Silent Imperium. If you found this exploration of the Warhammer 40K universe compelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and sound off in the comments below which factions, dark secrets, or horrifying realities should we decode next. Until we meet again in the shadows of the 41st millennium, remember the chilling truth. Sometimes, the absence of a soul is humanity's only salvation.